Welcome. You are now listening to Click Click Play. Please enjoy.
Fight!
Of all the video game news, it's made for white cisgendered males. Only joking, we'll have any kind of sexual deviant. And talking of sexual deviants, Ben can't make it today. He's got he's damaged his throat somehow. Not exactly sure how that happened.
Yeah, I wonder about that.
Oh, there he is! There he is!
It's Voldemort.
What are you insinuating?
Broken throat.
How dare you? By the way, we missed the first few seconds. God, I can't speak.
Oh.
I'm gone. Bye.
You sound absolutely terrible.
Oh,
So yeah,
wow.
we have no idea what happened to Ben's throat, but say hi to Dave for me, Ben. A couple of church notices to start things off this week. I want to keep things organized. This is going to be the best show that we've ever had now that Ben's out of the way. I know you guys have been writing in for months saying just let Jordan run the show, let him run the show. He's the real talent behind Click Click Play. You've got your wish. Let's see how it goes. Make your voices heard. Let Ben know that he's great on the technical stuff. He can be in the background, but you want Jordan Reese at the front of this show, kind of leading things. So a couple of church notices. First of all, we're available on Spotify now, which is a big deal for me. Love Spotify. You can find us there. Really easy to subscribe and listen. Please do that. You can also find us in a lot of other places: YouTube, Twitter, obviously Twitch, where you're watching us now, I assume, if you're watching live. We're also about to launch a new show, Click Click Play Reviews. That's not a final title. I think we're working on it at the moment. It is what it sounds like. We're going to be doing kind of long form reviews of video games. We're kicking it off this week with one of my favorite games in a long time, Resident Evil 2. So please look forward to that. And the final notice that I have is just to remind you guys that Mass Effect Andromeda is absolutely shit. There's a few articles that are popping up at the moment trying to revise history by saying it's actually a good game. If you forget it's a Mass Effect game, do not listen to those people. They're lying to you and they're lying to themselves. It's just two of us today. You might have already heard somebody else with me. It's Mellom. How are you, Mellom?
I'm good. Here from Sweden. Doing great.
You've ruined a joke, because what I was going to do, I was waiting for you to say you're in Norway, and I was going to say that's a lovely part of Sweden, but you've just undercut my joke, so fair play.
Yeah.
I like
Thank
that.
you. That was my plan.
How are you feeling? How's your throat?
My throat is actually fine. Dave hasn't been around, so I'm clear. I'm good to go.
Good. I'm glad. Been up to much?
This time I actually have done something.
What have you done?
No, actually I had a visitor last weekend. A Twitch visitor.
Oh, who's that then?
All the way from Germany.
Right.
Yeah. So Brenda was over
Brenda.
there. Yeah.
Big fan of the show.
Yeah. And we had a tourist weekend. We did some streaming, and that was all awesome. Ben roasted us on his stream, and that was awesome. And then we went to Oslo, and then I met a lot of other streamers, which was really fun, like Mirtur and Slettern. And Gary FPS, Alimac, Tabby,
all the big names.
All the big names,
big players.
So it was an amazing weekend.
Sounds good. So when it comes to tourism in Norway, what do you guys get up to? What is there to see if I come to Norway?
Well, in my little town, there's we have. I live in the oldest town in Norway.
Yeah.
So it's like
really. I just accepted that when you said it, but that's quite a claim, isn't it?
Yeah, it is supposedly true. It's like all the Viking town.
Wow.
So we have some kind of forts and some medieval stuff from after, of course, Viking times. But that's the oldest buildings we have, and a lot of we have some old Viking ships and stuff. I didn't get to show those actually, but we went up to see the tower, and then we went to we have a place out on an island that's called the World's End. It's basically
that's
just
fucking cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it is pretty cool. But it's basically just that when you see out to the sea there you don't see anything. It looks like the world is flat. So I'm not now a flat earther, by the way.
You've seen the proof, man. You've seen the proof.
It is fucking flat.
In my head, I'm just thinking of like God of War, like the latest God of War, just something like that. Was there like a big serpent or something there too?
It was, but it was a bit cloudy that day, so we didn't see the serpent.
Ah, okay, no worries. Well, in terms of me, I've had kind of a similar weekend. Really done a bit of touristy stuff. So I went to a small town in the UK called Leamington Spa. Really nice place. Got pissed with the missus. Had a nice Thai meal last night. Really tired today. We've just had to drive all the way back. But I'm raring to go. I've had a pork pie. Do you have pork pies in Norway, Mellom?
We don't eat a lot of pies, I think, but okay. I'm sure I tasted it. I'm sure
you've had a pork pie once in your life. So I've had one of those. I've got a bit of not like me. This isn't booze. This is coconut water. It is in a Stella glass. But this is just coconut water to get me through. Doesn't matter if I'm tired. We're going to get through this one, and we're going to start by talking about the games that we've been playing. I believe Ben is going to play the intermission.
Let's hope so.
I hope so. Otherwise, we're going to look really foolish.
Time to play the game. It's all about the game. And how you play it, all about control. And if you can take it, all about your debt. And if you can play it, it's all about pain. And who's gonna make it?
Boom. Love that. So we're going to talk about the games that we've been playing. Obviously, we do it every week. This is going to be a bit of a weird one because it's just me and Mellom, and Ben has actually told me what he's playing, so I'm going to talk about those games for him. He's been playing Anthem, and in brackets, he said not very good. I don't know, Ben, are you going to chip in on this at all?
It's bad.
Okay. Well, he's flip-flopping on that one.
It's very boring.
Boring now, is it? Right. Is that Ben or is that Mellom? That is you, is it Ben?
That was Ben.
Okay. It's very boring. Okay. I think that seems to be the general consensus with that one. Pretty looking game, but not a lot to do. So it's very much a Destiny game by the sounds of it. I've certainly uninstalled it and cancelled my subscription. Mellom, did you play it after? I think you did, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I only played some of the beta. But from what I understand, it's basically you do the same thing over and over, and it becomes really boring. But I heard that the last 5 levels, when you really start to grind the better gear, it picks up. So people has at least seen what the game can be and what it probably will be. I guess. So there is some hope in there, but it's just a rubbish start.
Yeah.
All Destiny, Division, all these games have
we all tend to. A lot. The kind of the narrative around it seems to be, like you just said, rough start, but they'll get there. I'm not even sure that they will. Like I'm just not confident that EA are that invested in Anthem that they'll necessarily want to turn it around. And it's not, the issues with the game are not just kind of a lack of content. Even though I've heard that complaint quite a few times.
Yeah, the weapons and stuff are...
Yeah, there's stuff that seems a little bit more kind of central to the whole premise of the game. It's a lot of loading on PC with an SSD and stuff. It didn't seem that bad, but it was just the amount of load screens that I saw. It kind of tells me the way they've sectioned the game off doesn't seem that intuitive for a game like this. You wouldn't, with Destiny, you get that cool spaceship flying for a bit, and then boom, you're into the game, and you're probably not going to see a loading screen for a good while. This just seems to be a lot of loading screens. Like you said, the weapons probably not as kind of as satisfying as we've seen in other games like this.
I heard it's just a really bad balance. There's no difference mainly in the weapons. You do the same. But I also heard that if you kind of strain away from using weapons and only go for abilities, it's fun again. So and you can do a lot of customization and stuff. So
and for me, I think I found the combat and the movement really fun. It was really satisfying, I thought. And you're right, the abilities are probably the more kind of interesting bit. But we'll see if EA put the money and time into it. I'm sure they can make this a really viable product. But considering that they pulled the plug on Mass Effect Andromeda so quickly when it bombed. This is currently sat at 60% on Metacritic. I'm just not confident that EA, like I said, are that invested in it. And I think I said this on the last show. This game kind of smacks to me of something that was developed when Destiny was, really, really in full swing, and people loved Destiny and saw it as the kind of future of video games. I think we've kind of moved on a little bit now. The new hot shit is Battle Royale, and interestingly, EA has the hottest one of those right now. So yeah, we'll see what happens with it. I like it.
Ironic, I guess EA was kind of not having those big hopes for Apex, but and more for Anthem, and wait all the way around. So that's cool.
Yeah, it is weird. Okay, cool. That's enough about Anthem. It's a boring game. Nobody wants to play it. But a game that Ben does like is the Division 2 beta. Now, I've been fairly vocal on this one. I thought that one was actually quite boring when I played it, but Ben seems to be really into it. Ben, is there any kind of mangled throat comments that you want to throw in on this?
It's also really rubbish.
Okay. All right. It's like a pivot. Okay, well, let's see what Ben is going to say in the chat then. He's going to keep us waiting. He hasn't said anything yet. I'll come back to you with his comments. Mellom, what else have you been playing?
Actually, I haven't played that much, but I had one weekend, now 2 days actually, because I had to add it up and now combine it. But I never played Metal Gear 5 or V. So I never got the whole story.
Okay.
So I watched through 2 separate movies. One where they had just taken all the cutscenes from they started with Snake Eater and ended with Metal Gear 4.
Fuck yeah.
And they went through, I think it took 3.5 hours.
I bet.
And then the next day I did the whole thing again, but with there was this dude and he was kind of lore expert on Metal Gear, and he went through all the lore while going through all the cutscenes and explained a lot of stuff. So there was so much stuff from all the games that I already played that I never catched. And so it's, I'm just in love with that story all over again. Because I guess I did the same thing with Kingdom Hearts, and in that way I get to love that story without even playing it. So no, it was really fun, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, you're on the right show, and you've got the right person hosting if we want to talk about Metal Gear. So this is now a Metal Gear Solid podcast. It's going to be 5 hours long. Anybody that's not up for that, if you could unsubscribe, please, from this channel. We'll see you in another show. That's interesting. So with Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence, that actually came with like a 3-hour movie that just took you through that game. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't actually.
So yeah, literally just the game comes with a movie version, which is almost, I think, Kojima kind of trolling for people saying that his games are just films. But yeah, like 3.5 hours just to kind of watch through one game. I'm interested that you haven't played Metal Gear Solid 5. It's probably the best playing game of the Metal Gear series, I would say, even though it's got by far the worst story. What's the thinking of not playing that?
I played. I must have played 10 hours of it. I'm sure. I got bored with the gameplay. I really enjoyed, like, it's mechanical really good, but for me it was mostly making sure the silencer didn't break and doing it all silently. And after you've done that for 10 hours without getting those like big boss payoffs like you do in the other Metal Gears, or with a big like story reveal or something, it's so little of it in Metal Gear, so I kind of got bored. But it's really superb gameplay. It's just this doesn't feel like it's paying me anything back for playing.
Yeah, like I've played through that game twice. Once on PS4 when it came out, and played it on PC as well. I love it. I think, like I said, it's probably the best playing game, and that's not to say that the other games play poorly. I think they all play really well. Even MGS1. Yeah, I would disagree with that, but we will be here for hours if we're going to argue that point. I look at Metal Gear Solid 5 as it's a weird one because it was definitely my game of that year. I think it's a really, really outstanding game. I also think it's a really big missed opportunity. I think Metal Gear Solid 5 was the best game of a year. I think it should be one of the best games of all time, and I think the reason why they didn't quite nail that. One, the story, like you said yourself, it just hasn't really got much of a story there. It doesn't feel that interesting. There's a big twist right at the end, which is quite interesting and does have big implications for the lore. But a lot of the lore that's in there is kind of is to do with the lore that was picked up in the PSP games, which not a lot of people have played and isn't really the most interesting part of Metal Gear. So he was quite indulgent in that way. And due to the nature of the game, it's kind of like a 50, 60-hour game, really, if you're going to kind of play it properly. They have to space out that lore so sporadically that you never really get a sense that you're being fed much in the way of a story.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and like a mission, it can take 20 minutes. Or you can spend 3 hours doing one mission.
Yeah.
So if you're like me and want to do everything perfectly and do it silently and everything, it's gonna take a while, and that means it's gonna be even longer between all the feedback with story and everything. So
yeah. Absolutely. I think the mother base stuff as well, that was a bit of a missed opportunity, kind of going into it, knowing how much people like Peace Walker, and that was a lot of that was because of the base customization element. I thought they would really maximize that and make it really fun, and I just found everything outside of the story elements at the mother base I just found really boring. I thought the environment was boring. Just due to the design of it, it all looks the same. You never really know where you are. And you upgrade it to get kind of buffs to take into battle, and all that stuff is good, but you just never really get a sense that much is happening at that base. It feels a little bit dead. So yeah,
and they don't make characters out of the NPCs there. They make them like even more stupid than they even should be.
Exactly. Yeah, you're spot on. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think it was definitely a tortured development cycle. I think by the time that game was out, this is only assumptions because the real story hasn't come out yet, but it was pretty obvious that the relationship between Konami and Kojima was completely broken down. And I would imagine the fact that they released Ground Zeroes before this and kind of separated it was the start of that kind of issue with them really pushing him to get that game out the window, costing a lot of money. You can see the way that he's carrying on now. If you look at him on Twitter, it doesn't seem like he's making a game. It just seems like he's touring the world and eating in all the best restaurants and meeting people, So I think, he's an expensive artist, and I think Konami had enough of him and they just wanted to get that game out. And it's a real shame because it's missing a whole third act. We know that. We've seen the storyboards for it. And I think if they'd added that, it's still not a great story, but it does become a lot more whole, and I just think they could have done more in terms
it answers a lot of stuff that you are wondering, especially in Metal Gear 4 and also in Snake Eater, and so I'm thankful for the game.
Yeah, when you kind of condense the story down, there's definitely some interesting stuff there. Like I said, it's just because the breadcrumbs are spread over 50, 60 hours. You probably just don't really get that much of a sense of it. But hey-ho, I'm sure the people in the chat want us to stop talking about Metal Gear now, so we'll have to move on, unfortunately. But maybe we'll do a spin-off show. And we need to get back to playing Metal Gear Solid 2 as well. We obviously did the kind of the first couple of hours with Ben recently, so we need to get him through that one because I think it's going to change his life. Any other games that you want to rave about?
No, I keep grinding Apex. It's my favorite game right now. It's going to be that for a while.
Cool. So like when I was listening to some other podcasts recently, and they were talking about that they're finding more and more people tend to just split off from the core three and go on their own. How are you finding that? Do people tend to still be working together, or are you seeing those people kind of try and go solo with it?
I guess if people are doing that, they must. I guess they're big fans of the big streamers that are really good at FPS games. Like Shroud, he never plays with a team because he's that good. It's basically that. It gives you really if you're average like me, you shouldn't do that. It's stupid and you're gonna lose the game. Basically, it's all about the team for us average players.
Yeah, cool. I read that Fortnite have picked up the kind of the flagging system. I can't remember the exact term for it, but the system you use to like flag inventory items and things like that.
Yeah,
So that was quite interesting. Ping
Yeah.
system, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that kind of Fortnite is kind of clearly focused on the game and kind of trying to take what they do well. That's cool.
Yeah.
I thought.
It was really cool. Also, there was some tweet from Respawn. No, from Epic towards Respawn about like congratulations on the big success and everything, and there was no like, because I remember with Battlegrounds there was this big court session, and they tried to and they're just skipping all of that straight away, because Apex they take in so many ideas from all of the BR games, and they just did it better, and you have to respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like a quite a common trend in the video game industry right now that everybody wants to be best friends, and they tweet each other congratulations, across different companies and developers and stuff like that, which is nice. It's better than the kind of the immature stuff we used to see like in the 90s and 2000s with either companies completely ignoring each other or actually at war. But I also kind of want one company just to come in and be a dick and just like really badmouth their competitors, kind of like what Sega did to Nintendo when they were trying to get the Mega Drive or the Genesis to take over the Super Nintendo. I'd just love to see a company come in and just start swearing and being rude. But
Sony gonna do that towards
it'll be Sony next year.
Definitely.
They're just gonna storm E3 this year and go in with a tank or something. So Ben has got back to us with a full review by the looks of it of the Division. He's definitely keen on us wanting to play this game. So I'll give you his thoughts. He says Division 2 beta is very smooth from a gameplay perspective. It's actually improved since the closed beta. That's good to know. I thought it played quite well in the original one. So shooting feels crisper and less random. Also good. Mission locations seem pretty diverse again. Cool. Looks stunning, says Ben, especially in the Dark Zone. I haven't seen the Dark Zone yet. Be quite interested to see that because that was my favorite part of the first game. Loads more customization with your abilities and how you play. Again, sounds good. Post-game roadmap looks huge. 8-man raids, specific job classes, specialist weapons, etc. Free DLC with 3 new stories, including one set in the Pentagon. That'll be cool. Which isn't even on the base map. And PvP Dark Zone or skirmishes, so you can have 4 versus 4 pure PvP fighting for the unique Dark Zone stuff. So it sounds like Ben's a big fan of it. I don't know if Don Bugles is in the chat yet. He said he was going to watch the Liverpool football game first, so thanks for supporting me on that one, Don. But he also played the beta and he really enjoyed it too. So it seems like people that like the first Division seem to be liking the second one, which isn't much of a surprise. Are you planning on playing it, Mellom?
No. I hated the first one.
So fuck off, Ben. No, we've talked about this on the show before. I really like the first one. I totally trust Ben on this. He played a lot of the first one. This is his kind of game. If he says it's good, I'm inclined to think that this is probably going to be good. Like I've said on the shows previously, I'm a little uninspired by the changes that they've made. I really wanted them to make a push to kind of take Destiny's crown in terms of this space. Doesn't seem like they're doing that, but I'm hopeful. We'll kind of see how it goes. I'm probably not going to play this on launch. I'm just not really looking for a big game like this right now. We'll talk about the games that are coming out this month later, but a big one for me will be Sekiro, which comes out like a week after this. And I think for a game like Division, what's a week? A week is nothing really. I'll scratch the surface of it and then move on. So I think for me, I'll try and be reserved with this one and kind of let it ferment a little bit. See if it gets, see if it matures a little bit in the opening months, and we'll see what Ben has to say as he plays a bit more of it. Good stuff. So I'll go through the games that I've been playing then. So I'm very proud to announce that I got my first platinum this week.
Oh,
so I've never had a platinum. To be honest, I don't track my trophies. My settings on my PS4 they basically make trophies invisible to me. So if a trophy unlocks, it doesn't pop up or anything. The only way I could see a trophy would be if I actually went into the kind of the little hub on the PS4 to see it. Now, I knew I didn't have any platinums, but I just double kind of checked to make sure I didn't, because sometimes you get them accidentally. And like the closest one that I nearly had was some like Battlefield 1948 or something, which was a game on the PS3 that I played for a couple of weeks. Somehow I've got like 90% of those trophies. So I'm really glad that I didn't actually ping a platinum on that one, because I want my first to be special, like you always should.
Of course.
And this one is really special for me. So like I said, we're going to do a long form review of Resident Evil 2, but I have platinumed it. The only reason I did the platinum was because the game, like a lot of the classic Resident Evil games, are really designed around replayability. They're a fairly short campaign, but there's a big following from the speed run community for Resident Evil, and they very much designed this game around that. And it's got a big list of records. That's what they refer to them as anyway. And they basically track the platinum. So I kind of wanted to do the records. There's a few records that actually you don't need to do to get the platinum because they're super, super hard. But like once you've done like 90% of those results, you end up getting the platinum. So that's how I got it. I won't be looking to get any more. So don't get excited that I'm going to become some kind of trophy whore now. But I do kind of feel like I've got the itch. I was thinking, maybe I should do Bloodborne. And just games that I like, but no, I'm going to try and move on from it because I think it's a bit of a downward
I think
spiral.
I have Bloodborne.
Do you? Did you do the
Bloodborne.
Chalice dungeons? Because I think that's probably where I'm missing out on Bloodborne.
Oh yeah, I've done it all.
Yeah, I haven't done those. I'm in the process of doing them actually, because my friend Jamie, I don't know if he's in the chat right now, but if he is, hello. He's actually playing Bloodborne for the first time, and he's got to the very end of the game, but he's also going through the Chalice dungeons now before he kind of goes and does the final boss. So I'm just kind of going through with him, and it's interesting. Like when he initially
It's going to be an epic.
well, look, it's his first Souls game, and I kind of walked him through the first few hours, and you know what it's like with a Souls game. Once you're either going to like it or you're not, and he's liked it, and he's got to the end of the game, and now he's also playing Dark Souls 3. He's got his eyes set on Sekiro, so yeah, that's been an interesting one to watch.
Soulsborne games are if you get past maybe the first quarter, you're gonna love the whole series.
Yeah, that's the thing, because they're so transposable. They play very, very similarly. There's differences. Bloodborne is a little bit faster. You're encouraged to be a little bit more aggressive versus Dark Souls. But the core loop is there once you understand that. I always talk about the Souls game as even the difficulty thing is a bit of a red herring. The bosses are very difficult. I find them challenging, or at least the repetition element. I find that quite off-putting. But I understand kind of why it's there. But when people talk about difficulty, the majority of the games I don't think are that difficult. You die a lot, but that's the mechanic of the game. You're supposed to die. It's basically a rogue game, isn't it? It's a roguelite. So you press as far as you can. When you're doing that, you're building up a currency that you then put back into your character, which makes you stronger, which means you can press on further. So the fact you die a lot, I don't think necessarily makes it a hard game.
And those games are like, yes, you can level up, and yes, you can get stronger, but it doesn't make the game that much easier either. It's just you have to train up your own skills, not the character skills, and that's one of the things I really enjoy. No, I said, so I didn't see it.
If you're going to say ignore my idiotic wife, please. I do.
Your wife.
Awkward. Right, Laura, come on, go away.
Solid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Father.
Sim, go on then.
Father.
All right, off you go. Lovely stuff. So, so Resident Evil 2, got the platinum on it. Fucking love that game. We'll talk about more of it in the review. Also picked up this week, there's a Game of the Year edition. I think it's called Game of the Year, because that's some kind of lore thing in the game. That's just come out. It's like 30 quid on PS4. I originally played Nier on PC. Apparently that version isn't all that well optimized. There's never been a patch for it or anything. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to pick it up on PS4 and give it another go. I fell off after like 10 hours maybe playing the initial one. And people just rave about the game so much that I thought I've got to try and get through this. So I picked that up on PS4. I'm still in the section that I kind of was when I played it initially, so there's nothing new for me yet. But yeah, just that the momentum that game has in terms of people considering it a classic. I think I just had to get through it. Is that? I think that's a game that you've played, right?
I haven't played it, but I really, really, really want to. But I heard like you have to play through it like 6 times or something.
I was listening to like an analysis of the game recently, and they were very keen to express that actually that isn't really the case. Like they compared it to when you read a book and you know, you read one chapter from one person's perspective and then read the next chapter, and it's the same sequence of events but from another perspective, and we wouldn't necessarily say, well, that's reading the book again. You know, it's a totally different perspective. So I think, I don't know, we'll see, I guess, but I don't think it's necessarily a case of replaying the game wholesale, or if you do, there's some really big differences in terms of how you play it, I think. So I don't know, and there's a lot of different endings, and you can end the game early and all that kind of stuff, but I'm in for the long haul. I want to see. I know there's a really interesting mechanical thing that they do right at the end, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I know that this is coming, which is kind of a bit of a shame. But it's a super interesting, it's a super interesting thing that they do with that game right at the end, a choice that they kind of make you make. But yeah, like I said, don't really want to spoil it. If you want to know, I'll tell you on WhatsApp. But probably just worth, if you're going to play it.
If when you finish it, if you say you have to play this, Mellom, I will play it.
I'm ready to say now. I think you should play it. I think it's the type of game that you'll really like. I really like it. I think I love the movement. I love the combat. I think the reason why I fell off when I first played it on PC, I played the demo and I really dug the demo. I thought it looked really cool. I loved the music, but in the demo, it's the first section of the game and it's very linear, and I just assumed it would be one of those games where it's kind of linear, and also there's a lot of like perspective changes in it. It goes from being like a platformer to almost like an R-type, you know, like kind of top-down 2D space shooter game, and it just really elegantly swaps between those different game styles. And I thought the whole game would be like that. There are elements of it, but essentially once you finish that opening mission, you get plopped into quite a bland open world.
It looks really like sad and not that like uplifting.
Yeah, well, the story as a whole is really depressing. Again, don't want to get into spoilers for it, but I totally think you should play it. And there's a game of the year version now, which is a bit cheaper. So yeah, I can definitely recommend it, even though I haven't finished it. Another game I will absolutely recommend to you because I'm loving it right now is Moonlighter. So Moonlighter is a dungeon crawling roguelike where you also run a shop, which is really fucking cool. And I can't believe I've taken this long to play it. It came out last year, like last May or something. It's nearly like a year old. I initially started playing this on the PS4. I've now migrated over to the Switch just because I think it's a really good game for just like playing in bed, or, you know, if you're watching a film you're not all that interested in with the missus because she, you know, has a crap taste in movies. You can do that as well. Essentially, the way this game works, I think, is really neat. Like you run a shop in this little town, and it's a very typical kind of RPG town. There's people you can talk with, all that kind of stuff. The items that you sell in this shop are the loot that you get from dungeons. So there's a dungeon on the periphery of the town, or multiple dungeons. You go into it. It's very much like Zelda, kind of classic top-down Zelda. So you go from, you know, you got one room and there'll be a door, you know, maybe on the left, a door at the top, and you can go through one of those, which will take you to a new room, and you'll have different enemies in there. Pretty much each enemy will drop some kind of loot. You pick that up. You then, if you die, you lose that loot except what's in your pockets. If you, like, most of your loot will go basically if you die, but you'll save some of it. If you leave the dungeon voluntarily, you take all of it back with you. So this is where the game gets really interesting. All that stuff that you take, you can then sell in your shop. So you physically put it down on a table. You set the price of it. So the kind of interesting mechanic there is when you first find an item, you might find, like, I don't know, a red crystal. And you're like, how much should I charge for this red crystal? You have no idea. It could be a really popular thing. So you just have to guess. So I tend to, like, if it's something that looks pretty decent, I'll normally put it down for like 200 coins, right? And then you open your shop. So you have to manually open your shop. You go up to the door. You kind of put the open sign on and get back. You walk back behind the till, and then people start coming into the shop from the village, right? And you can fully move around the shop while they're doing this and do whatever you want to do. And they'll eventually take a look at an item, and then you need to watch that person, and they'll get a little emoji above their head. Now, there's 4 different emojis they can have, and they range from being absolutely delighted with the price of this item. So, for instance, that red crystal, if it's
You've done something
really
wrong.
yeah. So they'll be like overjoyed that it'd be like, you know, walking into a supermarket and finding a PlayStation 4 for £5, you know, it's that kind of thing. And they're like, fuck yeah, it must be a mistake. They take it to the till, you have to sell it to them. Well, I don't know, like because you have to interact with them to sell it. So I don't know what happens if you just wait, because the shop closes at sundown, or you can close it manually. So I'm not sure if maybe you could close the shop to prevent them from buying it. I'm not sure, but I just tend to sell it. You know, it is what it is. I fucked up. So based on that, what will happen then? You've got a list basically in a journal of each item. So when you place that item down again, you consult that list, and it'll show you, okay, so you charged £200 for that, and that resulted in somebody being over the moon. So you know, actually, I can charge a bit more for this. So the next one you put down, you might want to do 500. Now, when somebody goes to look at that item again, you might find that either they're overjoyed again, which means again you've undercharged. They could there's one icon where they're just happy, which means you're probably around about the right price. There's one where they're not happy, but they're gonna buy it anyway, but you kind of feel bad. And then there's one where they're like, fuck you, how are you charging this amount for this item? So basically you just use that scale then to try and find the right price for this item. Prices can fluctuate, or the ideal prices can fluctuate slightly based on supply and demand. So if you find a lot of an item and you sell a lot of that item as well, I think what the game is telling me is that the value of that item will start to decrease. So there's a bit of a fluid market there as well.
Can you like hold it and wait to sell? You have like 3 of the same, but you wait with the 2 of them.
Yeah, totally. So you've got complete control. When you first start, you can upgrade your shop and stuff, but when you first start, you have 1 table with 4 slots, and you basically have to walk up to it. Now, if you've got like 9 of an item, that stacks. You could put the whole 9 items on, and if the customer likes the price of it, they'll buy them all. Or you could just put 1 down to test it. You know, you don't need to sell everything at the same time. If you go to the back of the shop, you've got 2 chests. And the way that I'm kind of reading this, so they're both empty chests. The way I'm looking at it, you also use these resources to build new items and new like weapons and shields and stuff like that. And when you go to do that, you know, you probably won't have the resources to start with. It'll be like, you know, you need 10 red crystals and 3 pieces of leather and whatever else. You can press a button at the merchant and it'll mark all of those items for you in the world. So if you find something, you know, actually, I shouldn't sell this because this is a resource for something that I want to build. So I use 1 of those chests to store all of the items that are marked as a piece of equipment that I need. And then I don't really know what to use the other one for, because I tend to just sell everything anyway. So yeah, you can basically just keep the resources out the back. You make sure you're not selling that stuff. And then when you build the item, you can just take that little flag off and then sell anything that you've got left. I just think it's such a cool concept. You start to upgrade the town. So you pay some people to come in to open new shops. So the first shop you probably build is like one that will build weapons for you. So you start off with a sword and shield. But these dungeons are pretty challenging. Like the recommended difficulty by the developer is hard. So it's definitely built to be a kind of a challenging game. And each dungeon has a few layers. Each layer ends with a boss, and then there's a big boss at the end of the dungeon. I've only managed to get through 1 full dungeon, and the last boss was super challenging. So the first one you'll probably build is somebody that's going to be able to upgrade your equipment, because you're going to need it. The sword and shield that you have isn't great, especially for fast enemies, because you've only got a short range. I'm going with a spear, because it's got a really long range, and I also take a bow. You can build a potion shop, so that kind of, you know, health potions and that kind of stuff. I'm trying to avoid having to use those, but they're certainly there if you know, if you're struggling with it and you want to go in with a bit of a, you know, some potions so you can up your health before you go into the final boss or something like that. There's another one where the chap sends in, I think he's going into the dungeon himself, or he's sending people in, and you can just buy items straight up. So for instance, if you want to build this new set of armor and you're a couple of bat wings short of what you need, you could go to him and say, okay, I want this, and he'll sell that to you. So it just saves you from having to go into the dungeon and find it manually, I guess. And there's other things you can build as well, which I haven't got to. But yeah, it's just a really, really cool twist on kind of the roguelike genre. I'm in my head, like I'm kind of comparing it to Rogue Legacy. The combat isn't as good as Rogue Legacy. Rogue Legacy is, you know, like a platform combat game, and it's the good thing about that game is just it's so tight. But in terms of the upgrading and how good that feels, and obviously this game just having that whole shot mechanic, which I've never done in a game. In some ways, I think it's better than Rogue Legacy. It just the combat just inherently isn't as good, just because it's that top-down Zelda style, which is okay. Like you've got a role in it, so it's got the whole Dark Souls invincibility role. So it's got all that going on, but I totally recommend it. I think it's really charming. It looks really good. Music's really cool as well. It's such a nice fit on the Switch.
I want to try it out, but it's like, I've never been really good at like roguelike games. I didn't, not Shovel Knight, but what was the name? The game you compared it to?
Rogue Legacy.
Rogue Legacy. I never actually finished Rogue Legacy, but I might try it out just for the shop thing. I really want to like try a new kind of game. It just sounds really interesting.
Yeah, like I said, it's pretty rare that I find a game where you're doing something that I've never done in a game before on the whole shop thing. I'm sure there's games that have done it. I can't think of what, but it's just a joy to go into those dungeons, find some items, take them back, kind of spend some time pottering about, putting the items out, working out what price you want to sell for them. I just think it's really cool. Okay, so moving on from that, I think that's pretty much all I've been playing. I have been playing Beat Saber a little bit as well. My wife is in chat for some reason. She's just reminded me of that. That's really cool. I got it on PC, and you can basically you add a mod to it, and you can just download any songs that you want. So that's my new kind of exercise regime. Is to put a headset on and play a bit of Beat Saber.
Yeah, many people are doing that, and it's apparently working.
I think you can legitimately do it because I was sweating like a bastard after playing it, which doesn't take long for me. But it's just so much fun. Anybody who doesn't know what it is, it's a VR game. You essentially have two lightsabers, one red, one blue. Blocks fly towards you with arrows on them. You need to slice the blocks with the right color lightsaber and in the right direction, which is indicated by the arrows. And it's in time with the music. And yeah, on PC, you can just easily install a mod, which basically lets you download and play any song that you want with it. So yeah, it's fucking really cool. I think then that is probably it for the games section. So we're going to move on to the news. Ben, if you could take it away with the intermission, please, sir. Boom, news. Let's hear it. So, big news this week. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done the show, but this was actually this week. New Pokemon games announced, Sword and Shield. So no surprise, we knew they were coming, but Nintendo chucked a little 7-minute direct out there and gave us a really good overview of what these games look like, kind of when we can expect them. I don't think there was a date given. I think it was just still kind of late 2019. You can imagine this is going to come out at some point before Christmas. It'll be a big seller. Mellom, are you a Pokemaniac?
I used to be. They're still good, but I'm done with doing the same game over and over. But
sure. Is this one doing enough, do you think, to bring you back into the fold?
I think they're doing some mistakes now. There was some really good ideas with that last game. I can't remember the name. The Let's Go.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, Pokemon Let's Go. And primarily with taking away the random encounters. And also I like that. I don't know how I had mixed feelings with that you had to catch everybody and you didn't actually fight Pokemons. I really would like that they added combat again, but use the same mechanics for when you actually want to catch them. So you had to like get them to a low HP and then catch them with the same way, and then it's a bigger chance of catching them. So if I made a game, I would do it like that. And also I would make it with like flowing camera and not the constant angle that is apparently they're going to use. And it seems like, so they're basically just making the same game all over again. And I also want them to really like prioritize online battles with friends or randoms, because I think that's it. I think they have been missing with the other games. Like there haven't been like a really good matchmaking. There haven't been like a good online community for making it a PvP game, because
Yeah.
it would do really good with it. I used to play, like, I guess I can't say, but I used to play a lot of browser games that they took the Pokemon battle and they put it into browser games, and you could play with or against other people on the internet, and it's so much fun. There's so much depth in the gameplay. You wouldn't think so, but it really is. But like, because you only have 4 different attacks, or 6, I can't remember, and you have to like add it up with all the elements and all the different Pokemons, and also you have to catch the right Pokemon. Not only the right Pokemon, but the right Pokemon stats on that Pokemon. You have to get like with the special K and everything. So it's so much depth, and there's so much you can do with it. And I really hope they like do something with the PvP.
Yeah. Did you watch the reveal?
Yeah, I watched it later.
So how much can we? I know a lot of people have kind of jumped on the whole random battles are back. I watched it once and probably wasn't paying enough attention, I guess. Was it definitely clear from that presentation that we're back to random battles, or did one of the guys call it out or something?
For me, it was because he was walking in tall grass and he didn't see any Pokemon, and then he just went into battle. So
okay, so it kind of showed that would work. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I kind of understand why they've kept it to that formula. I think they've always been so conservative with the Pokemon games. These games have just never stopped selling crazy amounts, and they basically sell 2 versions of them.
They don't want to mess the formula, clearly.
Exactly, yeah. And I think this to me, at least from a visual perspective, is definitely the biggest leap that they've taken. This is technically the first core Pokemon game on a home console. I know a lot of people use the Switch predominantly in portable mode, but it does connect to a TV, so it's definitely moved really far away from that kind of top-down isometric view that we had in the old school Game Boy games. I know the more recent versions, I guess, was Black and White the first one to go like proper 3D with the characters.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've been moving in this direction, but I thought the game looked gorgeous. I thought it looked really good, but I just think
I bet you do, because it's I think it's based on Britain.
Well, I haven't got to that bit yet, but yeah, it is based on the best country in the world, which is the United Kingdom. So that's good. I think that they would be really worried. Like, I don't know enough about Pokemon to really express this, but I wouldn't mind betting that people that are super, super into these games probably weren't all that into Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. I think that was aimed at a different market, and doing something as kind of changing something as core to the gameplay as the random battles and how you find Pokemon, I imagine would have pissed off a lot of fans. I could be wrong on that. But I imagine that that's the case. I think when it comes to finding like rare Pokemon and stuff like that, I imagine there's a bit of a grind element to it that was probably removed with Let's Go. But I could be talking shit. Like I said, I don't know enough about the series. In terms of my history with it, I played, I think, Pokemon Blue back when it came out on the Game Boy. Absolutely loved it and didn't touch any core Pokemon games after that. I played a little bit of like Stadium on the N64. I certainly played Pokemon Snap. And other than that, I've not really done anything with Pokemon. I'm going to jump back into this one just because, one, it's on Switch. 2, like I said, that visual leap. 3 is set in the best country in the world, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. So yeah, for me, this is a good jumping on point. I'm really interested. Like, from your perspective, it sounds like it doesn't seem that revolutionary. So I'll be interested to see people that really, really are into the Pokemon games. Is this enough for them to feel like the series is really moving on? Do they want the series to move on? I'm not entirely sure, because they keep on buying the games.
It seems like on Reddit they're just what's the word? Protecting it. They want it to be the same. So
Yeah, and maybe that's the thing. Maybe Nintendo knows that. So any big departure, they risk. I don't think, as far as I'm aware, I don't think there's been a core Pokemon game which is like bombed or people didn't like. I'm sure there's parts of the different games that people like and don't like, but because they've played it so safe, I think it's been pretty consistent in terms of people loving it. Where are we with, like, you talked a lot about the PvP element in terms of the more recent games? What does that look like? Is it still pretty limited, or can you do quite a bit now?
It's so much. I'm actually not really sure, but I'm pretty sure it's really limited. I think it's
strange.
You have to link up and everything, and you don't have to use a cable anymore, of course. But it's really rubbish.
Yeah,
and
so I think you're probably right. Then hopefully, what this game will do is really get into that stuff, because the trailer ends with him walking into that big Coliseum, which is really epic. And I think you can imagine having a fairly typical Pokemon RPG, and then you could once you've defeated, like, what is it, the something 8 or whatever, the gang of people at the end of it. I guess that always happens.
What's their name?
You know what I mean, don't you? Like the end game bosses, and then
the 4 legends.
Yeah. Do you always fight your rival as well? Is that still a thing? Is that happening in every game? Do you always have a rival and you always fight them at the end?
That started with Silver or something, I think.
I think that was in the first one. I'm sure. Like you name your rival at the end, don't you? At the start.
I think Red was first in Silver. I might be wrong. Maybe it was in Yellow, but it was not in Red, Blue, and Green.
Okay. Yeah, it'll if they launch this with a really cool, like, PvP end game almost. So introduce the Coliseum like halfway through or something, but then all the end game stuff is kind of based on PvP. I think that could be amazing. And that
you can try, Brenda.
what she said.
No, only she wants to make a good question.
Okay, yeah, try your best. So yeah, interesting. Like I said, I'm going to play it, and it'll be interesting to see how much that sells and what the kind of feedback is from the kind of hardcore Pokemon crowd.
But can you imagine 8 people going head to head, like 2 versus 2, and then going up a ladder towards the like a tournament with PvP? And
I'm amazed that stuff isn't in Pokemon already. If you had told me that's what Pokemon PvP is like, I'd be like, yeah, I'm sure it is. Why wouldn't it be?
That would be. I play games on the PC, on the browser with that, and it's fucking amazing. It's so much fun, and it amazes me that it isn't implied.
I'm guessing that the 3DS wasn't a great online device, maybe. Like, probably wasn't that online focus. So with the Switch, the Switch isn't great at the online stuff, but you got, like, Smash Brothers for me has been amazing. People complain about Smash Brothers, but, like, I've had a fucking brilliant time and really good luck in terms of the the connection types that I've had and that kind of stuff. So I reckon that you're probably right. This will be where the game will try to move things on is in terms of the kind of competitive element. So yeah, we shall see. Next bit of news then. I wish Andre was there for this because he would love it. Hollow Knight sequel has been announced. Took people by surprise. I think people were expecting a DLC announcement, and it sounds like one of those things where a studio were working on a DLC and thought, you know what, actually, this is probably a game.
I've heard actually that was the case.
Yeah.
They were working on a DLC, and after a while they were just like, we have a whole new game here, guys.
Yeah, good for them. And that game just seems to be going from strength to strength in terms of popularity and how much is kind of respected within the industry. It had a bit of a slow start, but once it came to Switch, I've heard people throwing around it's like their favorite game of all time. So like a really, really loved game, and to be getting a sequel this early on, for anybody that likes it, they must be over the moon. I've got a little excerpt from Polygon. Just so we can kind of clue people up in terms of what this actually means. So Hollow Knight developer Team Cherry surprised fans this morning by announcing a full sequel to 2017's bug-filled Metroidvania game. It's called Hollow Knight Silk Song. The game stars Hornet, who's a character in the initial game, I believe. The team teased that Hornet will have different moves and abilities. So it seems like the game will be pretty much the same thing. The art style looks very similar. The game's got a cool art style anyway. So it just seems like new character, different abilities, new world. Boom. I'm sure that anybody that likes Hollow Knight is absolutely thrilled with that. What do you think, Mellom?
Yeah, I loved the first game, and I can only imagine this one being as good. For me, the first one was 10 out of 10. It was even better than Dead Cells. For me, I know a lot of people love Dead Cells a lot, but for me, this was like a notch over that, and I can't wait for the next game. I never finished it. It's too freaking difficult for me, but
Gotta get good.
Yeah, exactly, and I don't know, but for me, I can't play the Switch for like weeks on ends, like I can do with the PlayStation.
The
And
annoying
just
thing about the Switch version is just that bloody D-pad on the Switch. Like, it hasn't even got one. It's got those 4 buttons. That really put me off it. I think I've tried this game a couple of times. I tried it on Switch. I think I even tried it on PC when it first came out. But I'm gonna try it on PS4 because that just seems to be the only place I can play with a decent D-pad these days. Andre fucking loves this game, and he keeps on going on about it, and he tells me I need to play it. So I do need to make a bit more of a concerted effort. I just find it a little bit dull, at least in the early goings. It's kind of a quite slow game, a bit drab in terms of setting and the writing and stuff.
Yeah.
But
it has it has that Castlevania thing where you unlock stuff. But yeah, the bosses is insane. You actually have to I don't know, you have to I do a thing when I'm Dark Souls, I do this counting thing inside me, and I have to hold this rhythm to do the bosses. In this game, the rhythm is so fast and it's so unpredictable at times. It doesn't follow a formula on point, but you have to like see on the first move what combo is going to use and everything, and then you have to so you have to switch up the rhythm all the time. So it's for me it's really, really difficult, but it makes it even more fun because it's when you finally beat it, you have worked for it, definitely. So yeah, I love this game, really.
Sweet. Do we know when this article doesn't mention it? Do we know when we expect to see the sequel?
No, for me it seemed like they didn't know themselves. It was kind of like a shadow release. Yeah.
I would probably this year, isn't it? Because if you think, like,
definitely.
if they were working on it as DLC, you'd assume that they were looking to get it out pretty quickly. So I don't think we'll
probably been working since the last release.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I need to get through that first one. Really, I think that's the general consensus, is that everybody needs to play it.
Hey, early next day.
So next bit of news then. Not really much to talk about on this one, but I wanted to call it out just because I really, really like this game. So Horizon Zero Dawn, there's been a lot of buzz in the last couple of days online that it's just hit the 10 million sales mark, which is impressive for any game. Unless you're something like GTA or Pokemon or Call of Duty, 10 million is a really big milestone. And it's even more impressive when you consider that's a console exclusive. So essentially 1 in 10 PlayStations has a copy of Horizon Zero Dawn, which, as much as it's a high quality first party Sony game, it's still kind of niche in ways. It's this really weird sci-fi story, and a fucking good story at that. But obviously people like robot dinosaurs, why wouldn't they? So yeah, I just wanted to call that out, that it's hit 10 million sales, and I just really, really look forward to seeing whatever they do next with that series. Were you a fan of it?
What can I say? I didn't finish it. I got a bit bored, and I don't know, I fell in love with it at the beginning. And then the interaction with the NPCs and with quest givers and everything, it really put me off. The gameplay is really, really good, like mechanical wise and everything.
Yeah.
But there was something with the story that I just felt like, okay, I've seen this story. It's a journey that just goes on, and then it's gonna hit me in the face, and then I'm gonna cry, and then it's over.
I don't think you'd cry, but I say quite a lot that there's not that many good stories being told in video games. I don't think. I think even really successful video games generally
So
don't
true.
have great stories. There's only things like BioShock. Yeah, sure, fucking incredible, right? Obviously, Metal Gear, greatest story ever told.
Best.
But
Undertale.
generally, yeah, weirdest maybe. So it's rare, and this one, like, I just thought he was so fucking solid. It just hit on every mark. It's got like three major plots going on, and they just resolve them all. And there's just a definite end to this story. It isn't like, even though clearly they were starting a new franchise with this, you don't get. There's not a sense at the end of, okay, this was the start of something. It's like, no, they just told you a really damn good sci-fi story. So yeah, props to it for that, and I'm glad to see that that effort has paid off with a lot of sales. And the best thing about it is that basically guarantees a high budget sequel on PS5. So happy fucking days. And last bit of news, then we could probably chew into this one a little bit more. This is very much in rumor land, but it's got to the point where we know something is happening. It looks like there's going to be some kind of Xbox integration on Switch. This has kind of been drip feeding in via kind of rumors and speculation.
What the hell are they doing?
Well, let's have a few guesses at it. So in terms of where we're getting this information, over the last month or so, little bits and pieces have been leaking out. In some kind of tech conference that Microsoft were a part of, they just casually mentioned that their software integration is compatible with Switch. Now, there was no big announcement that we're doing Switch or anything like that. They just kind of said that we're compatible with XYZ, and one of the platforms they said was Switch. Now, that was no kind of confirmation really, because they could just be saying that aspirationally, but actually Nintendo might be like, well, you ain't touching our hardware, which would be completely understandable from a Nintendo perspective. Microsoft is a long-term rival. But now just that kind of rumor and speculation buzz has really picked up, and a lot of reputable industry analysts and things are basically saying that this is happening. So it sounds like they'll bring Game Pass to Switch, primarily via streaming. You've got to imagine, if you look at Xbox, even though the vanilla Xbox is kind of the runt of the litter when it comes to the current consoles, and obviously the Xbox is the top dog in terms of power. Any of those games running on any of those Xbox machines are probably going to be a little bit too graphically intensive for a Switch, unless there's a major downgrade. So the thought is that this will primarily be a streaming service, or potentially some of the kind of lower.
That makes sense.
Yeah. The Ori and the Blind Forest has been thrown around quite a bit, so that's kind of puzzling to me, because you'd think that isn't really a game you would need to stream on Switch. You'd think you could just download and play that with a relevant version. But then I suppose if you're streaming it, they don't have to do any kind of conversion in terms of getting it running on the hardware. But that would just seem like for me, that just seems like one you would actually make a version of and let people play without streaming. And then you use the streaming for something like the new Gears game, the new Halo game, that kind of stuff. But it's pretty obvious at this point that Xbox and Nintendo are in bed with each other. Which is super interesting, especially from a Sony perspective. So yeah, what do you think about this? What do you think is going to happen, and what do you think the impact is going to be?
No, but I think I think the same as you, but I also think, like, because it's clearly now in the future soon. Just like with movies, with Netflix and everything, there's going to be streaming thing with games, and it might be just like Microsoft, Nintendo have figured out, like, we can't compete with each other with this, and of course against Sony, because if everybody could choose between three, they will easily choose Sony, because they have all the exclusive. It's at least against Xbox. I would think Nintendo would stand a chance against them, or like most people would buy Nintendo streaming service and Sony, but Microsoft I think would just die out if that was the case, because you can't have it would cost too much for everybody. So I think if Microsoft are thinking that, they can maybe get a bite of the cake, as we say in Norway. With the Nintendo, I think maybe that would be a good idea.
Yeah, it's super interesting. There's just so much that's happening at Microsoft in terms of Xbox right now. I get the impression that after the disastrous launch of Xbox One, there's probably a lot of conversations there, and there was actually some talk a couple of years ago that the head guy, so not Bill Gates, but whoever is actually leading Microsoft right now, wasn't all that invested in the Xbox brand. And there was definitely some talk that potentially they'll either spin it off or just fucking close it, which is crazy considering they've just come out, you had the Xbox 360, which is just an absolute smash success. Changed the industry in a lot of ways, and then to go from that to the Xbox One, and actually there's some kind of talk which seemed fairly legitimate that there was a consideration for basically getting rid of the Xbox brand. That's quite a big fall from grace. It seems like they decided to actually plow on, making some really disruptive moves. The way I look at this is low key the end of an era. This is the end of a console arms race. Nintendo have already kind of ducked out in a way with the Switch. They've essentially moved fully into the hardware space, I would argue. So the handheld space, not the hardware. And I think this is kind of Microsoft. The cynical way to read it is them kind of actually giving up and saying, "Okay, Sony, you've won." But I actually, I think that would be a cynical way to read it. I think they've got a far more long-term view on what the game industry is going to look like, and they fully committed to a plan, and they just seem to be rolling that out. And it just so happens that plan is very different to what we've known of the kind of console space for the last 20 years.
Xbox's plan was to fucking make a multimedia console. That was their big plan. They took away all the plans with games, and that's where they striked out. And Sony did the opposite, and of course they win because it's for gamers.
Yeah, and I think if you're Microsoft right now, if they had just said, okay, we're just gonna carry on playing this as we always have. So you know what? Yeah, Xbox One hasn't been the success we wanted it to be, but we've still sold a fair amount. We'll carry on. We're going to build new hardware. We'll try and beat Sony next time. I just think they already had a losing hand. If you think about what Sony have kind of in their arsenal right now, they've had such a good generation in terms of first party games. All of those studios are now prepped to make follow-ups to those games. We still haven't had Last of Us 2 come out on this generation. I think that game is just going to fucking own everybody as well. For Microsoft to try and fight on those grounds, I think they're smart enough to know they wouldn't win.
They have Halo, that's it.
Exactly, yeah. And they've already said that Halo will be coming to Xbox One, so it's not even as if that'll be, like a game that they can say this is the next generation Halo. It'll be very much a this generation Halo. I think I got a sneaky suspicion it'll be a really fucking good Halo game. But yeah, that isn't going to be enough to kind of win this in conventional means. So for me, they're ducking out of this race, but I think they're doing it for all the right reasons, and it kind of diversifies the market. We were in a really weird spot, I think, kind of midway through this generation where, and I think this is what really went against Microsoft, there was no difference really in terms of an Xbox One and a PS4. PS4 was slightly more powerful, but the games were pretty much identical. It's all kind of off the shelf PC hardware anyway, so it became a bit of a weird one in terms of the consumer. Why would I own an Xbox and a PS4 outside of the exclusives? And obviously with Sony having such a strong suite of kind of exclusive games, you can see why they've kind of tripled the sales. But there was no, outside of that, there was no real it basically became, why would you buy an Xbox then? Like, outside of just brand loyalty or the fact that your friends play there was just no reason to do it, because it wasn't offering anything different. I think with this move to kind of a stream into more of a kind of service side of things, you can understand why. I can totally envision myself having my PS5, which is my core console. That's probably where I play most of my games. and they're following the same kind of traditional way to run the market of, you know what, we've got a piece of flagship hardware. We're going to release 2 to 3 big first-party properties per year, and based on the sales of that console, third parties are going to support it. So it'll be a really good place to play games. I'll also then have my Game Pass subscription, so call it like £10 a month, and that allows me to play whatever kind of first-party stuff that Xbox has, which should start strengthening soon, because obviously they had all those acquisitions, and lets me play anywhere, and lets me play, I don't know, some shit third-party games that I wouldn't want to play anyway. But, you know, it'll be cool to have that subscription. And then you've got Nintendo, which is, like I said, a glorified handheld, really, and a really good one. And obviously getting all those Nintendo first-party games as well. So for me, personally, it's cool. But what it does do is, like, I've got an Xbox One X now, outside of playing Red Dead Redemption 2 on it, because that was definitely the best place to fucking play that game until the PC version comes out. Like, there's really no reason to own it.
Are you still sure it's coming out on PC?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that game will be out on PC within a year, I reckon.
I don't think so.
I think. Why wouldn't it?
Just because, I don't know, it was, like I said before, if it wasn't Rockstar that released that game, it wouldn't sell at all. And I don't think they can do much with the online part, because like Gran Turismo's or Grand Theft Auto's online part it's based on like trolling and having fun and doing weird stuff. And I think the audience for online Red Dead wants something else. So I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they would sell the same on PC. They would sell a lot, but it won't do the same success as Grand Theft Auto Online, because that's a trolley game. You want to just fuck around and do weird stuff. But
but
they can't do that.
I agree. I agree. I think Rockstar would know that, you know, they're not looking to sell 100 million or whatever it is right now for GTA 5. But regardless, like if that game was released on Steam tomorrow, it would be #1 in the charts for a good while and continue to sell, as well as, you know, as new people picked it up in sales and stuff like that. So I think they would just be leaving money on the table. My understanding is with the original that the market was very different at the time. It was very console focused versus PC, and the game just wasn't well optimized to kind of run on a PC, and there would be a lot of work to get it going. I think now, considering the success you've seen with GTA 5 being on all major platforms, or at least, you know, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, and the amount that is sold, I would find it very, very surprising if they didn't have a PC version, and I'd be very surprised if you don't see a souped up next generation console version as well. But we'll see, I guess.
But can you imagine how easy the game would be on PC? The thing with the game, it was, all the guns did really good damage and everything, but it was just difficult to handle.
I think they botched the controls in that game. It doesn't control anywhere near as well as the original. With the original, I turned off any kind of aim assist in the original, and it was challenging. But by the time I finished that game, I felt really proficient in the aiming and the shooting. With this one, I tried to do the same thing, and it's just not. You just can't. It doesn't feel good, and you just never get that natural reflex for shooting. You pretty much need to lock onto a character and then adjust from there, which I think is a bit of a shame. Kind of takes away a little bit from the kind of the cowboy fantasy for me. But again, regardless, I don't think Rockstar are going to be sitting there, or 2K for that matter, kind of sitting there and thinking, you know, oh well, we'll have to get mouse and keyboard support for it, and that might bugger up the shooting. I think they'll be looking at it and having dollar signs in their mind, because they'll sell a fuckload of copies, and it's such a prestige game, you know.
I hope they don't do it, because I think it's gonna ruin the game.
It'll be interesting. Like, I think what would be interesting is all the mods and that kind of stuff. You already see it with the online on console. I think the online, in a weird way, tarnishes that game, because it's such a well put together campaign. It's really thoughtful, really emotional, and then you just have this kind of this voiceless avatar as your online character. And
like
goes
Ben
back.
said there, give me Red Dead Online RP server, that would
Yeah,
be so
that'd be good.
good. And with
take it.
like only like 10 friends or something max, it would be so freaking cool.
Agreed. But I would bet you a lot of money that you will see Red Dead. I think within the next year.
I think you're right, but for me personally, I wish they wouldn't, because for me they're gonna ruin it. In GTA, you can add a lot of content like new cars and stuff, but Red Dead, you're stuck in Well, yeah, that's true, and Dennis. But also, there's a lot of stuff you can add, of course.
But then there's a lot of PC players that don't play on console, that they might not, it's not necessarily about the online. They'll want to play that campaign as well. Like, you'd be crazy to buy Red Dead for the first time and just say, I'm only playing online. I'm sure people will do that. I don't think I'd get on with those people all that much, but yeah, we'll see. I think that brings us to the end of the news.
I liked one. There's one thing more in the news, by the way. But there was one thing I liked, because you and so many else hate the thing with it was so slow with the controller, and you say they messed it up. But for me, I enjoyed he takes the gun out of the holster, and you get a little twitch on the aiming. And then you have to take the hammer back, and then again he gets a little twist, and there's and all of this movement it's weird. It shouldn't be in a game, but I really enjoyed that it was there, because it immerses me more in the game. I felt like they nailed the shooting in that game, and not the opposite.
I think it felt good. I just, like I said, I just never got to the point where I could play it without lock on.
And also, and you had to do it really slow. It was really fucking difficult, and it should be that way, if you ask me. It's like
it should, but then
it shouldn't be that easy.
I agree, and that would be fine if you didn't have 15 other cowboys shooting at you with precision aiming. That was the issue, was that the campaign didn't really allow for you to be sluggish with the controls. You'd get fucked. You would get shot and killed, and that happened quite a bit.
You know how much I hate cover shooters after playing Division and everything.
Yeah,
but Red Dead is basically a cover shooter, and it's doing it good, because you have to counter people, you have to get to the right position and everything, and you have to use the cover, because you're squishy. You're going to get killed if you don't use it properly.
Counterpoint: very difficult to find cover on a horse.
Yeah, but who fights on a horse?
Anybody that plays Red Dead, because that happens every fucking mission, that you're riding around getting shot at.
No. You go off your horse, find a tree or a rock.
My horse might get killed.
No. He just runs off. It's all good. My horse didn't die once.
Mine did. It was really fucking sad, man.
Yeah, I remember.
Fucking horrible. I hate that. What a fucking good game, though.
Ben says the Division does cover shooting very well. No, it doesn't.
Know what he's talking about. What was the other bit of news?
Just Reggie. He left the Nintendo.
Yeah, I tried to put that in. I don't really know what to say about it. Like, I think he's cool. I think the important thing is that somebody called Bowser has taken over his job. That's awesome. Yeah, Reggie seemed like a dude. I liked his energy.
Yeah. He was a dude.
I wonder if it means any kind of change. Like, Nintendo seem to be on the right track, so I can't see they'll change anything. I wonder if they will, just based on this. But
I'm so sure those people are just faces. They don't do much.
Yeah, and I suppose, with Nintendo being a Japanese brand, there's only so much weight that the head of North America is gonna carry. Ultimately, it'll be Japan calling the shots. It seems like that job is like basically, I think Reggie and this new chap both were like head of sales before they took over this job. So I imagine their role is very much, Nintendo says, this is what we're doing. We're making Breath of the Wild 2. Don't get too excited. That's not confirmed. We're making Breath of the Wild 2, and then they go to Reggie or Bowser, lol, and they say, okay, this is what we're fucking doing, you American piece of shit. How do you think we should do it to maximize sales in America and by proxy, Europe? I imagine it's that kind of thing. But yeah, very cool that somebody is that high up and his name is Bowser in Nintendo. I just imagine that first interview for the job and you walk in and you say, my name is Bowser. You'd be like, get the fuck out, you troll.
Either
best
that or
to Reggie,
you're hired.
yeah, without even asking a question. All right, cool. That's the end of the news. Do we have like a music thing for questions? I forget. Or do we just go into questions?
Question time. No, no,
Oh
no.
yeah. Question time it is then. So big apologies to the chat. I'm not as seasoned a pro as Ben. I also like to ignore you all, so I haven't been jotting down the questions. But we've managed to capture a few.
We are podcasters, not streamers.
Exactly, yeah. You should care what I say. I don't care what you say. But if you do have any more questions, please pop them in the chat and we'll try to cover them. We've got 3. So the first one, Ben informs me that it's the 2nd year anniversary for the Switch today. I wasn't aware of that. What are our highlights and lowlights? Did that question come from Ben, or is that from? Should I be calling somebody else out for that question? I think that's a Ben question. Regardless, I'll answer it. For me, highlight of this, I was pretty lukewarm on the Switch. It'd be interesting to go back and listen to some of the shows leading up to it. I think Ben said he did that recently. I can't remember exactly what my words would have been, but I wasn't overly bullish on the Switch, and I think a lot of that was just because how dejected I was after the Wii U. I hated the Wii U as a piece of hardware. I'm a console fan. I'm a fan of console hardware, and I like to I like to talk about the hardware that I like, and the way it looks, the way it functions, that kind of stuff. I think the Wii U just failed on so many fronts. It looked terrible, didn't work very well, just a bad idea all around. So I was kind of low on Nintendo at that point. And the idea of the Switch being this kind of portable home console thing was unproven. We didn't really know how well it would work. But to be honest, from the first day that I started playing Zelda, because obviously that was the first game I had for it, I knew that I'd fucking loved it. And it's one of my favorite consoles of all time now. So I think in terms of highlights, definitely Zelda. I finished that while I was in the bath, so that was fun. Other highlights, I think it's just obviously Smash. Like Smash is just a dream come true for me. I know I go on about it a lot, and there's that reaction video when it was announced and stuff. But it's difficult for me to communicate like how important Smash Bros. Ultimate is for me. Melee is a game that I played for hundreds and hundreds of hours in my teens in a little flat in the South Wales valleys, and we all smoked drugs and played Melee and got really good at it and really competitive. And when we all kind of got a little bit older and moved away from each other, that kind of fell away. And you had Brawl on the Wii, and I bought a Wii to play it, and I imported Smash Brothers from the United States of America to play it like months early because that was a thing then, and just played a little bit of it. But the online, I think it had online, but it was just like really crappy, and nobody was really there to play with me. So I kind of fell off that. I then bought a Wii U to play Smash Brothers Wii U, and again, the online wasn't great for it. I think a lot of it was that where I was living at the time had bad online anyway, and again, just nobody there to play it. And the Wii U was just such a bad console that I didn't want it in my living room, so I ended up just selling the Wii U. Now I've got Ultimate. It's not only on a really good console in the Switch. It's also a really good Smash Brothers game. It's the closest that we've got to feeling like Melee, and I think a testament to that is that is it Evo is the fighting tournament thing? Am I right in saying that, Mellom?
No idea.
I think it's Evo, so it's kind of where all the nerds get together and play Tekken and all that shit. And for years, Melee has been there alongside the latest Smash Brothers game. This year is the first year, I believe, I could be getting this wrong, but the first year that Melee won't be there, and it's just Ultimate. And I think that kind of shows you where this game is. I think for me, it isn't quite as crisp. It doesn't feel quite as good as Melee, but it's very close to it. And with the suite of extra characters and levels and online capability that it brings, for me, it is the ultimate Smash Brothers game, as corny as that might sound. And it just means that I can basically boot up Smash Brothers and go into online and play somebody at random, and just have a fucking match of Smash Brothers. And that's the first time I've been able to do that on a regular basis since I was like 16 or something. So for me, that's a big deal. What about you, Mellom? What's your highlights of Switch?
Mine's gonna be fast and painful.
Always. Like Ben's throat.
The highlights are Zelda. I wasn't keen on getting the Switch, and then Zelda came out, and I really wanted it then, but I didn't have money for it, basically. But when I got money for it, I bought it, and I bought it to play Zelda. And then I get to the lowlights. I played Zelda. I hated it.
You hate Zelda?
Yeah.
Fucking hell! How have we not talked about this before? Is it the weapons? Is it because they break?
No, it's the for me. Nobody agrees with me, so it doesn't really matter. For me, the world is dead. It's so empty, and it just generates new of the same NPCs over and over. And for me, it just, I don't know. It didn't do it for me, and I hated like the challenges. You have to do these puzzles, and they were like, either it's really, really, really simple, or else it was like stupidly difficult, especially for my little brain. And I don't know, I never fell in love with it. And the story was, I don't know, it was so diffuse. It was so.
I've got two complaints about. I do think Breath of the Wild is astonishingly good. I think it's one of the best games of all time. I have two complaints with it. The story element, I love the Zelda lore. I kind of love that story, and with each core entry, I like to see kind of how they're going to build on that lore. They didn't really do much of it. Again, if you go to YouTube and watch like a lore video for it, there's
probably
cool
so
there.
much.
Yeah, there is for the entirety of Zelda, but also where Breath of the Wild kind of fits in. All that stuff is there, but it's just the way that it's communicated in the game. You just don't really get a sense of it. They're almost too minimalistic with their approach, and they kind of the story cutscenes. It's a collectible in the game, and you need to go and find random locations based on pictures, which I always hate in games anyway. I hate that puzzle. And then you get a cutscene, but they're going to be in the wrong order because you're finding them in a weird way. So like that didn't hit home for me. I didn't really get a sense of like adding to this epic tapestry of lore that Zelda tends to do. And obviously, it's well documented how I believe that I know that the weapon system is broken, pardon the pun, and your weapons shouldn't break anywhere near as fast as they do, or at all, I would argue. But it's interesting to know you don't like that game.
Yeah, I would probably like it more if, when I say I hate it, I'm just saying it in a dramatic way. I think I would like it more if I played it at release when it was more hype, because I played it when it was everybody was done with it, and it was kind of like whenever I did something, I knew like everybody has done this or something similar
no surprises,
like
I guess, like being so well documented. It's just such a cool sandbox. I think everything just interacts with each other in a really cool way.
It's so much cool. I think if it was on like if it was on like PlayStation 4 or something, or a PC, you could render more. You could make the world more.
Such a PC snob.
No, but I mean, you could have more life in the world because for me it was so empty.
But
that's just me.
But on the opposite of that scale, do we need it to be like fucking a Ubisoft open world game where every 5 seconds some prick is walking past you?
No.
So. Yeah. I don't know where I'm going with that, but
No, but I take your point.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it at that. But yeah, 2 years for the Switch, awesome. Like I said, one of my favorite consoles of all time already. A bit of a tangent. I think pretty much the accepted view is that there'll be some kind of new hardware for the Switch unveiled this year. I really hope that it isn't just a kind of a cheaper version. I hope there is some kind of premium version with a bigger screen, that kind of stuff. I would buy it in a second, which leads into this next question from a troll named Adinis. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Do you think
Adinas?
Okay, cool. Do you think this? I'm sure you've asked this question before as well, you troll. Do you both think the Switch is worth the price of which is fine up until that point, but then you add of a real gaming console?
No, but I get it. I get its meaning.
It is a real gaming console, and yes, it's absolutely worth the price. And I would pay. I would give Nintendo even more money if they just gave me a slightly bigger screen, a bit more grunt, and a longer battery life. So yes, to answer your question. And if you went troll, I'm sorry.
I say the worth of the console is because it has exclusive Nintendo games. It's the Nintendo games I buy. The console for me is it's good. It's handheld. You can also use it on the big screen, but it's like it's on the toilet as well, in the bed, wherever you want. But it's not the strongest. It's not the best.
It's a handheld.
It's a handheld, but if I could choose, if I could get all my Nintendo games on PlayStation, and then I would just play PlayStation.
That used to be my thought. When I said earlier about what was my view going into the Switch, I think a lot of the time on this show I would have spent talking about I wanted the Switch to fail, so that happened, and so that Nintendo went the way of Sega and just said, actually, we're out of the hardware market, and we're gonna have our games, in my fanboy
That
dream
would mean only mobile games, you know that?
No, definitely on that. So my fanboy dream would be that they would get in bed with Sony, and Sony would have exclusive rights to put them onto console. Obviously, I've got the exact opposite. Switch has been a massive success, and they're now in bed with Xbox, which isn't what I wanted at all. But it is what it is, and I don't think they're leaving the hardware market anytime soon, considering the success of the Switch. But yeah, just give me that premium version. Something like the step up that you saw with the original DS. The first DS looked terrible, was a terrible design. And then they released that really slinky, nice one. So that's what I kind of want for the next Switch. That would be ideal. Cool. Okay. So next question is from the same person, Adinis. So far, there's no game that made me want to buy the Switch. Yeah, it's only remakes of old games. That's not a question. And then follows up with which everyone's disappointed about. That's not a question, it's a statement. Ben, why have you put that in the questions field? Damn you. Okay. Last question that we've got then. Okay, Ben said that's just a comment. I'm not reading the chat. I'm sorry, Ben. I'm not reading the chat. You're right. I'm presenting a podcast. Is there anything? Any other questions? We've got one more that we can finish with. But any other questions?
It's not on the remix.
Yeah. So the last question was, how did me and Ben meet? We used to work together. I won't mention where because I still work there. But yeah, essentially we used to work together. I think more than 10 years ago now. We were in the same kind of. Yes, I was stripper. We were the same training group. I was going to say to be strippers, but yeah, that's how we met each other. And Ben, one of the first interactions that we had was that Ben actually sold me some tickets to go to a gig that I really wanted to go to. And I took my girlfriend at the time, so I was very thankful to Ben for that one. And he was also roughly my age and conservative, which I quite liked. Obviously, he's changed now. He's a massive floppy-haired liberal now, but at the time he was a good boy conservative, and I enjoyed that in a person. So yeah,
that's snowflakes.
Bloody SJWs. Cool. Okay, so. Ben has asked me what was the gig. It was Anthony and the Johnsons, Ben. Another question we've got is, how painful was it to work with Ben? Well, I still feel like I work with him now because we have to talk every day and we do the podcast and that kind of stuff. But no, it wasn't painful. He's a top chap, big fan. Yeah. Any other? Oh right, yeah, we did miss this one. So there's a mod that's been released for Resident Evil 2, and this one replaces Tyrant with Thomas the Tank Engine. And it's fucking amazing. And Mellom, I put it in the WhatsApp chat earlier, and it's also on my Twitter if anybody wants to go and find it, Mellom and Jordan. So basically, the way this works in Resident Evil 2 Vanilla, kind of midway through the game, an enemy is introduced that will stalk you around the environment in real time, and it's really creepy and really cool. And basically, if you're in a room and the enemy is getting near to you, you'll hear footsteps as it gets nearer, and then it'll kind of chase you down and eventually kill you if you don't do something about it. So there's been a couple of mods for it. One of them was to change. There's like this sinister music that starts playing when the enemy sees you. The first mod changed it to X going to give it to you, because the character is referred to as Mr. X. So as soon as he sees you, X going to give it to you starts playing. That's really funny.
Perfect.
Mod that's taking all his clothes off, which is what it is. There's a new mod though that basically when he the instead of hearing footsteps, you can hear a train chugging along. And then when he comes into the room, he is fucking full on Thomas the Tank Engine with his big grey scary face and blue engine, and just dun, 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 dun. Do you have Thomas the Tank Engine in Norway, Mellom?
Yeah. Thomas Dogge.
Yeah. So yeah, Thomas the Tank comes and fucks you up. So there's a cool video online. You should go and watch it. I think Ben has just posted an article which will show it off. Chat. So yeah, that's funny. Have we got any other questions before we slay this beast?
I guess we need to slay it.
Let's slay it then.
Yeah.
It's been lovely. Ben, I wish you a very speedy recovery. No more deep throat for you. Mellom, it's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
Anything that you wanna kind of flog on today's show or promote or tell us where we can find you, that kind of thing?
I am a Mellom Man on Twitter and Twitch. That's basically it.
Excellent work. What can we expect if we go to your Twitter? What kind of banter can we expect from you?
I haven't been on Twitter the last 4 months.
So not much then.
No.
We'll leave it at that. If you guys want to get more of me, which you definitely should, you can go to Twitter at Mellom and Jordan, all one word. Check me out.
What kind of banter do we get there?
I talk about domestic UK politics and a lot of video game stuff, primarily Resident Evil at the moment, but I've just uninstalled that, so it might move on to new pastures.
Nerd.
Video games and politics there of the right-wing persuasion.
Perfect.
Brilliant. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, chat. I'm sorry that I ignored you. To be honest, it's probably because every time I do the show, you don't say anything of worth, so I assumed it would be the same this time. So kind of up your game, and maybe I'll start paying attention to you. We'll leave it at that. Ben, if you could end the show for me, please.
Things and DVD.